अस्सलाम वालेकुम and welcome to Kaam Kahani, a podcast for the career curious. आज हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं अंजुम निदा रहमान. She is a corporate affairs and strategic communication specialist and a recent founder. So आज उससे बात करते हैं और जानते हैं उनकी काम कहानी. अस्सलाम वालेकुम.
Walaikum assalam.
How are you, Anjum?
I'm very well, thank you. Bahut shukriya. Just to correct you, I'm the co-founder.
You're the co-founder.
Yes, the founder of this enterprise is a colleague and good friend of mine, and so yes, I have to be very correct about the right titles because I am communication.
That's good. Strategic communications. अच्छा मुझे बताएं. So this corporate affairs and strategic communications are big words. इसका मतलब क्या होता है? मतलब in आसान अल्फाज में what does this mean?
It means that how would you communicate as a company? Okay? A company is also an entity, right? Not a physical entity, but they're not a person, but they also have a way of speaking. They have a way they want to engage with the world. And my job has been over the last 15 years to engage with the outside and with the employees of the company using a certain language, certain words, certain activities that all resonate from the company's mission and purpose. In terms of corporate affairs, it's how the company talks to other corporate entities. Just like you and I are colleagues and we communicate in a certain language. So corporate affairs ke andar, how do you communicate, with the media? How do you communicate with Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan? How do you communicate with government? So all those things encompass corporate affairs. Sometimes legal also comes under it. I don't have the legal expertise, but we've always had advice. But that's what corporate affairs entails. And communication is the actual tools that you use in order to, which, as they say, the medium is the message. So whatever medium you use to best tell the story or the message of that company.
So you're the voice and the spokesperson, or you set the tone for the company.
That's correct. But the spokesperson is also the CEO normally because everything is derived from their vision and their purpose.
तो इस चीज़ के लिए for this particular purpose एक अलग प्रोफेशनल क्यों चाहिए होता है? एक अलग डिपार्टमेंट क्यों चाहिए?
Because the devil is in the detail. That's why. Because you have to be very precise. What you say can be misconstrued. So you have to be very focused about how you're communicating with the world, both internally and externally. They have to go side by side. So you work very closely with HR because आपके पहले ambassadors आपके employees होते हैं.
Okay.
So they need to know and be motivated or engaged and buy into your vision before anybody else outside can.
By the way, do you just HR when HR communicates with potential employees, so that's also their first sort of communications with the outer world. So do you also coach HR on how to deal with?
Well, we try to make templates for them when you're going through a It's much easier when you're a new company because then you set the tone, you set the diction, or you go through a rebrand. Where you say, we used to be like this, now it's...
Say start करें.
So it's much easier to do that, but sometimes companies decide, we are going to focus on a certain or set a goal for the next 5 years, and we want everybody to know about it internally and externally. So then we go through that exercise of incorporating those same messages into all the communication, whether it's within the company or outside.
But communication के अलावा क्या does this also include behaviors?
Yes, absolutely. That comes under values, though, which is very much an HR function, but we help with the activities that are involved in ensuring that behavior. So we work collaboratively with them.
So, misal ke taur pe something like, for example, I'm a person applying for a job in a company where you are the corporate affairs chief. तो मैं would I expect the HR जब मैंने CV उनको दिया and then they didn't like me, for example, तो फिर मुझे वो जवाब ही ना दें कोई भी. So is there something that you sort of...
I would always advise
correct?
him, absolutely, because one of my mentors always said that any person applying to your company should become part of your tribe, regardless of whether they're an employee or not. Anybody who comes into contact with you, whether they're your customer, whether they're a potential employee, whether they're potentially from educational institutions, you have to build a tribe. That's where the pull factor comes in. Instead of pushing your messaging onto people, you develop this. They should have a desire in them to be part of your story, right? They want a piece of that. So if you're an employee or a potential employee who has applied for a position and you haven't heard back, it's kind of off-putting. Okay? They don't care.
It is.
But if somebody writes back to you and say, I'm really sorry, well, we've put you on our mailing list, and if something good comes up, we'll reach out to you. You're actually like, okay, it's not,
Yes, in fact, some rejection letters are so endearing. No, कहते हैं, अच्छा, we hope you find what you're looking for. And it's like, oh, wow, they really care.
Exactly, yeah.
They don't,
And that's when the company becomes a person. It's almost like an entity then, right? Because it has feeling. And you start associating human emotions with them. You just touch upon it, saying you feel. How often you feel anything about a company, right? That's the sentiment that you, as communications and corporate affairs, want to put in people, so that when they think of you or talk about you, they have that personal connect.
So, do companies, that brings me to the question, जो companies होती हैं, do they really have a soul? मतलब,
They do.
because they're profit maximizing entities, right? I mean, businesses. तो क्या, do they actually feel for the people?
I think they do. I think good companies today that believe in good corporate citizenship do feel for their people. I think they should be, especially in today's day and age where you have generations of people that are driven by purpose and a feeling of well-being that they want from the companies that they work with. So millennials and Gen Zs are very, very clear that they want people that are more than just, good employers. For them, a good employer is somebody that has a soul. And so if a company has a soul, then it becomes more connected with them and their belief system. So I personally think that, yes, I believe that people in the company give it the soul. And we as communications have the responsibility of giving that soul voice.
बिल्कुल. And there are companies जिनको आप जिनसे आप मिलना चाहते हैं, जिनके पास आप 20 साल वक्त गुजारना चाहते हैं. So yes.
So there are 3 organizations in my life that I worked with, and I still talk about them as we. Actually, one. One was a government, and the other is an organization where I still say we when I speak about them, even though I left them 5 years.
Oh wow. Yes, that's
They know that I went to batch, and I feel I was part of something.
एक मुझे सवाल करना था, शुरू में करना था, मुझे अभी याद आया. वो ये सवाल है कि when you meet people or you used to, up to you're an entrepreneur, right? When you used to meet people in dinner parties या wherever, खानदान में, ईद पे, when they ask you, अच्छा आप क्या करती हैं, what do you do? How do you answer that question? Because corporate affairs, मैंने भी अभी पूछा कि होता क्या है, what is it, explain it. So how do you answer that question?
So I usually say that I tell the story of a company everywhere I get. The story that they want to be told. So that's my job. So essentially, I'm a storyteller. Whether it was as a journalist, whether it was, at the various phases in my life that I've been through, the one common thread is the story, and being a storyteller. So when people ask me, when I was a journalist, I'd be like, well, I'm a journalist covering conflict or whatever. Then they'd say, well, what are you doing now? They say, well, I'm a talk show host. Then when I moved to the corporate sector, it's like, I'm here to help, which is one of the first companies I worked with, Telenor. Then I would say that and they said, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I represent them in the public sphere and the face of the company, along with the CEO. So that's how I would define the role specifically.
Well, so you give them a serious answer,
Yeah,
an actual honest answer.
absolutely. Because again, that's my moment to connect and tell people that this organization that we're talking about has real people, put a face to a name or a product or a service, you buy, I don't know, hairspray or something, and you only buy that product for what it is. But when you actually meet somebody who works there, it makes it real, right? And so that's your opportunity. And I've always seen that it's people to people connections, right? That's what human beings crave, that connection. And especially after COVID, that connection was missing for so long that we, I think, started craving it even more, finding reasons and ways to connect with each other. So I've tried to use that always. I think it's generally because I find people so interesting that I've always had fruitful conversations.
That's good. That's good. Varna, if it was me, I would have said ki I work in marketing. It is sort of like it's sort of marketing company sorts.
Because some people think of it in, so communications can be placed in two places in a organization. One, it can be placed in corporate affairs, which is separate, and it has to do with, as I mentioned, all the various entities that you deal with outside, or it can be in marketing. When it's marketing, so here's my distinction, right? So public relations is a huge part of the communications job. The way I understand it, public relations is free. Marketing is paid. When you combine and put public relations under marketing, then people outside perceive the payment factor. When it's kind of a step removed and sitting in the corporate affairs department, I've seen that there's a willingness to just use your public equity that you have, your brand's equity in the market, and use that to get traction.
But PR भी तो outsourced होता है in a lot of companies. PR is also outsourced. You hire an
So you
agent.
have an agency, but you don't pay. In my opinion, people should write about you without you being paid for it. They should talk about you without you paying for it.
That's PR done right.
That's my opinion. I think that's how it should be done. There should be enough curiosity in them about, or you should be able to get enough curiosity in them that they want to talk about you.
But Baba, like you've worked for uh, telecom, you worked for retail, you worked for fashion. Lekin what if you had worked for a company jiski, I mean, I won't name industries, but an industry which is selling products जो public health के लिए नुकसान है, for example, right? Could be multiple kinds of organization. उनको defend करना ज़्यादा मुश्किल होता होगा. Like a lawyer, you're defending like a criminal, तो उनको किस तरह defend करते हैं? And why would people write about it?
Because like everybody, there is a good side and a bad side. And your job in that situation would be to highlight the good side. So if these companies that you speak of are, yes, maybe their products still do have adverse, impact on people, but they're also working on environment or climate change, or they're working on using their sustainability platform to actually promote employability in the country, or upskilling people so that they have access to more jobs, that you give, and that ties in with their higher purpose, so that there is a way of managing that. But and I'm quite certain, having studied these instances a lot in my life, that you that fact that that product has an adverse impact is already on the table, but there is something more that they do, and there's something more that they offer, and you can use that and actually garner that interest for good, in my.
But again, वो जो and not to very belabor this, लेकिन वो जो अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं, isn't that sort of like to make their actual work more palatable, or try to sell that in a better way कि चलो नहीं हम ये बुरी चीज़ बेचते हैं लेकिन देखो हम अच्छा काम भी तो कर रहे हैं, इसलिए हमारी ये चीज
I don't think I'm in a position to comment on organizational motivations, but I personally think that um, we can see good in everything if we want to. And it's important to do so because there's a lot of misery in the world and sadly by themselves. So if the story that they're telling is a strong one and it is in line with what motivates them to work, then I think that that would be a good story to tell. Personally, I'm looking at it from putting my journalist hat on, right? Because that's how my brain works.
ex-journalist.
No, there's no such thing.
There's also once a journalist.
It's a state of mind. It's a fitrat, in my opinion. You have a curiosity to ask questions and to learn more. And that shouldn't stop, regardless of where you are sitting professionally. There's an innate curiosity to know and understand, just like you have. You're doing this podcast because you have a curiosity about people's curiosity and what motivates them, right? Now, even if you were sitting elsewhere, that curiosity would still exist, and you'd still sit with people and ask them what motivates you, or up you can job better, right? So the same goes. I've always found the stories that are behind people fascinating, and that's not something that I've given up ever.
So the CSR, okay, let's talk about CSR. Okay. So when you're Axel corporate affairs is then clubbed with CSR, corporate affairs and CSR head and similar kinds of designations. तो CSR जो होता है वो कंपनी क्यों करती है?
So I just from what I'm seeing is that it's evolved more towards sustainability. And the difference between CSR and sustainability is CSR has the social responsibility of that corporate entity when it's working in the public sector or the public space or wherever it is in an economy. Whereas sustainability is doing it in a manner that in a little while you don't have to keep giving money to them; they're able to manage it on their own. So you enable. It's more enabling. And the reason why the two are trapped together is because they kind of go together. Why? Because how we communicate is derived from the purpose or the promise or the vision and the mission of a company. How we communicate is the language that we use in order to do that. But to see it in action is done through sustainability and CSR. So if I promise that I'll take Jazz as example. Jazz banayega Pakistan, Buddhist Pakistan, right? How do they do that? They include that in education, in health, in from their Jazz Cash app, which they're increasing financial inclusion. And then in their campaigns, they talk about inclusiveness as a society. So, the dunya ko bata, right? So they're telling people, they use their platform to tell me about telecommunication, about digital, about how digital can change your life. And the programs that were part of that would drive from that same purpose. So that's just an example I'm giving, but even that's why the two are clubbed together, because not only are you CSR and sustainability is walking the talk, right? So you're not just talking.
Exactly, यही कहने वाला था, literally.
Yes, so that's it.
Yes.
You're
Walking the talk.
You're walking the talk, and that's why they put together, because the person who is speaking should actually be showing it. So the actions are there that they do.
That makes sense. That makes sense. CSR or corporate affairs, now, why is it sort of overrepresented by, why are women overrepresented in this field?
The most honest answer I can ever give you is because people would give you access more quickly than they would give to a man.
So there's strategic reason for it.
I think so. I've always seen it that way. I know that there have been instances where people have tried to communicate with somebody and they haven't been able to succeed, and using their networks or whatever. They've tried and tried persistently. And then sometimes the lady goes in and voila,
That's just
she's
enough.
in. So I've seen, I think there's also the fact that women are milder. They're seen as less of a threat. They're more, and sometimes less aggressive. Although I have seen some dynamic and extremely powerful women. Um, and I've been blessed to work with a few of them. But I find it incredible that I think there is a softer side that sometimes companies feel they need, which a woman can bring
To balance.
Yeah, that's like we talk about women in leadership, right? A woman doesn't have to be rude and strong and assertive. She can also be empathetic and use those feminine qualities and be a feminine leader in a company. I've tried to be that way.
How would you influence people to join this function, for example, corporate affairs, strategic communications? How would you highlight the importance of it?
It is extremely important.
It's clearly important.
And if, in my opinion, in my experience, the leadership has to be a believer. If the leadership is not a believer in this function, you will fail. So or you will spend so much time convincing them.
So leadership ke demo karam par hai ek tarah se, you know?
It is, because it's driven by them. That's why I said to you that it comes from the purpose and the promise or the mission and the vision.
But that's not very sustainable, right? Is it? If you get into...
So show that you can, I definitely think, look, everything is an opportunity and you should, मेरे ख्याल में आपको वो opportunity इस्तेमाल करनी, convince करने की, क्योंकि अगर वो शख्स जो है वो समझता है कि this is not viable or I don't think it's important और आप उनको दिखाते हो उसकी value क्या है, तो ये मेरे ख्याल से आपकी सक्सेस है इस पोजीशन में. और मैं मशवरा लोगों को यही दूंगी कि absolutely do not an understanding of sales and finance would only help you do your job better, because you're speaking about what the business does with a much more informed and knowledgeable position than you would if you were not somebody who had a background in finance and sales or commercial. So, मेरे ख्याल में you're much better equipped if you do focus and understand. And that's why I always say that when you join a company and you have your own board, and you need to be plugged into the commercial side for at least a month or two in order to understand the business. And then you can start talking about it.
Otherwise, आपके अंदर वो depth ही नहीं होगी. You won't start talking.
You have to do that immersion. It's not just के manage वो rotation करके
I'm newsletter पढ़ लिया.
नहीं,
Good to go.
you have to be immersed. You have to go out and sell if you're selling, or you have to be providing that service or and connecting with the customer. I really think that companies should spend a lot of, especially with new leaders in the company, jo aapke director and above, and they should be immersed in the sales side, the commercial side of a company very, very quickly, and they should be there for a while to understand it, and they should be tested on it, I think, because how else can they speak about it?
Absolutely. They won't have the credibility, in fact.
And they won't be able to speak with authority, because you're constantly, then you'll be searching for someone to explain it to you.
Before you confidence नहीं होगा.
Exactly.
Authority भी नहीं होगी.
Yes. So you have to be immersed in actually doing that job for like a while.
So Anjum, you went from being a journalist to being a talk show host, to then being
a journalist and talk show was almost the same.
And then to becoming like this corporate affairs specialist. What made you in the past switch fields?
But I realized when I never thought I'd leave journalism. Never thought I'd do. So I started off my life working in media. My cousin makes ads, and I used to assist him on his music videos and his ads. And then by the time I hit my mid-20s, I was like, I think I want to do a little bit more than just ads. So then I went to school and studied and came back. And
you studied production?
Media and television production. And I came back at a time when there was no media and television production. We had one TV channel. But then 9/11 happened. And that for me was like, it changed my perception. I was able to, work in journalism and tell the kind of stories I wanted to. And then I was picked up by the Canadian government and I was their media and public affairs officer, which is public affairs I find fascinating, which is the corporate affairs for a government.
Oh,
right?
a serious business.
Yes. And so I worked with the government of Canada, and that's when they were working in Afghanistan. So I spent a lot of time there. And when I couldn't go beyond a certain point because I wasn't a Canadian diplomat. So then I switched to Express.
It's almost like being a diplomat, right?
Exactly. But when I moved to Express 24/7, they just started an English language channel, and I had that background in government relations, Pakistan's relationships with Canada, like the region, Pakistan's relationship with the US, China. I would study that as somebody who worked in media and public affairs. And so that was the area I focused on. But then I realized very quickly that हमारी ज़बान उर्दू है. And I think in English, I've reached a point कि मैं दोनों, but at that point, जो मेरा लफ्ज़ जो जुमले निकलते थे, they weren't in English. तो I was at a disadvantage. But especially जब चैनल जो था वो उर्दू खबरों पे चल रहा था, जब आपके इश्तिहार बेचते थे तो वो बेचते थे उर्दू चैनल को, वो इंग्लिश चैनल को नहीं बेचते थे, क्योंकि उसकी मार्केट, जिनकी डिप्लोमेटिक कम्युनिटी थी पाकिस्तान में, वही लोग,
बहुत छोटी मार्केट,
बहुत छोटी मार्केट,
तो एड्स तो उनको दिखाई नहीं देते थे, एड्स
so it wasn't financially viable. And I was smart enough to understand that. And so when the opportunity came, I was like, so now what do I do? Because I know that this is not going to go on. And I realized that one of the things I could do is use the experience that I had with public relations and public affairs and the training that I had received while I was with the government to actually move to the corporate side, because companies need somebody to do that for them. And that's what I did. And that's the rest, as they say, is history.
That made a lot of sense. You had all the...
I had the experience. And also, remember, one of the things that the head of communications does is represent a company in a crisis, right? So having been a journalist, I have an innate sense of knowing the questions that the journalist would ask. So if I knew that this is the company I'm working for and this is an area that could potentially become a risk for a company, I have already done the background work to preempt it, make sure the answers are ready, and also be able to put my point of view across as the company before the journalist has asked that question, which is very difficult to convince the management to do. But in some cases, I have been permitted to do that. I set the tone.
So crisis, कभी हुआ है crisis in the corporate world and Oh yes. किस तरह की crisis आते हैं usually जो आपको manage करने पड़ते हैं as corporate affairs person?
Somebody says something bad about you in the press. There are allegations about you that are incorrect. People misunderstand what you've said. There's an image on your ad that is disrespectful or is seen as disrespectful. So the campaign content that you've done has rubbed someone in the government the wrong way. You have to manage all of those. Absolutely.
And what about your experience with the pharma industry? उसके अंदर भी इस तरह के...
No, it's a very regulated industry, and both like pharma and telecom were regulated, but pharma way more because it actually is medicine, right? So no, I've actually enjoyed my experience working in pharma. It's been a bit brief, but yeah, I think that because it's so regulated and it's so based on quality and standards and availability, and it's kind of it's been less problematic than the...
Because tightly wound, right?
It's been very regulated. That's the best way to describe it. It's very regulated. So it's not really been... crises haven't been too much of a risk.
मुझे बताएं, how did LoKal Bites come into existence?
So my whole face will change when I talk about LoKal Bites because it's a new...
That's why
it's...
मैंने सबसे आखिर में रखा था.
So LoKal Bites came about over 2 years ago. a former colleague of mine founded it when he left Khadi and wanted to do something. His family's already been involved with providing healthy food, and he wanted to use the retail experience that he had from his journey to start retailing food. And so I collaborated with him and gave him some ideas about recipes and what people like to eat. But
How did you know about recipes?
food has been my passion since I was maybe 2 years old, maybe younger. My nanny used to cook in the kitchen, and I would be sitting on a stool. She'd have me peeling almonds or doing something with her. I remember she was from Madras, and I remember I was so small that मुझे उनकी साड़ी की जो प्लीट्स है वो याद है. मैं इतनी छोटी थी किचन में और उन्होंने मुझे खाना पकाना सिखाया सूंघ के. तो I remember, I think I was 17 when I told my mother. She said, well, what are you going to do with your life? I said, I want to be a chef. And she said, क्या बात है, फंसामा तो नहीं बन सकती, you know. And I said, well, I really think something I should do. And about 9 months ago, the engagement with Sanofi came to an end, and my co-founder said, well, why don't you start this in Karachi? And I did, and within the first week, we were approached by the TriFit Gym, which is in CVU, and they told us that we'd love for you to start providing us with snacks for our members after the workout that are healthy and nutritious, and that would help them with the workout as well. So we brought LoKal Bites to Karachi in 3 days from Lahore. It was only in Lahore till December.
Okay.
And the rest doesn't say history. Now it's available alhamdulillah in Fresh Basket. We're expanding to other outlets as well. And yeah.
And so what do you guys serve? What's the menu?
Okay, so we call ourselves LoKal Bites, guilt-free snacking. It is what it is. We make high protein, low carb, gluten-free, and sugar-free products. Okay? They're really good for you. And when I mention all these attributes, most people think that it's going to taste slightly bitter or it's going to have some flavors in it that they're not going to understand. And I can say this, that every product is tested on my 10-year-old son. And if he says, yuck, it's not going on the menu because children don't eat it.
Yes, and they love sweets.
And they love sweets. And so, but we don't just make sweets. So we make things like chocolate mousse and cakes and things like that. But we also do pizzas and bread. We make it so people who have, for example, gluten allergies, we have a lot of products for them. They can actually enjoy bread again. And like me, I'm not allergic, but I just did find that if I consumed a lot of wheat, I was quite bloated. And then when I switched to having this bread, it changed my life and made me feel much more healthy.
So Anjum, when you jumped into this,
Yeah.
I mean, I know you were passionate about it. लेकिन क्या did you do any like वो जो करते हैं सारे metrics test करते हैं total addressable market और कितने लोग खरीदेंगे क्या price point होना चाहिए will we even make money? You did.
Absolutely, we did, because that's what our training, So we approached it like we approach a business, and it has to be viable. We're working towards, taking it on the startup route, trying to make it, a viable business for ourselves. And our passion is to make a healthy food cool and trendy. It has to be. I think that with so many young people being aware of their bodies and what you put in them. I mean, question for you. I'm flipping it. Do you put minty ka tel in your car?
No.
Why would you put it in your body?
True.
It's the same question. If I'm giving you something that is the same price as something that's really bad for you, because it has all these processed carbs and all these preservatives, and I'm telling you that everything you have is organic, everything you have is gluten-free, everything that you have is made with the best products, and we have the macros all sorted. We have food technicians involved. We have nutritionists involved who help with breaking it up, and we present it on the same shelf. If you knew that it tasted that good, one, it has to look good. And secondly, it has to taste good.
You guys do any kind of sort of sampling, testing?
All the time. Absolutely.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
Because you have to, of course. That's, yeah.
Every time we introduce something new, we go in and we're very lucky because in Lahore, we've been partners with one of the nicest coffee shops in Lahore. It's called Artisan. And we made special cookies for them that look like coffee beans.
Oh.
So they're like, when you have a coffee, you can munch on these cookies. And yeah, so we made it just for them. So, and we also got our product range in their stores.
So this is, decisions are to start LoKal Bites. Was it not scary? Matlab, do you not miss your nice paycheck coming in as head of corporate affairs and communications and the security of it? How do you compensate for that? Fine, you're passionate about it. They can you've got to pay bills.
Like LoKal Bites has to work. It has to work. And I can't think about the past. When I took the plunge and I committed into it, it has my 100%. I do consult with companies. One of the things that I like about strategic communications is that my experience has enabled me to focus on, I've done a merger, I've done acquisitions, and I've just...
You said merger, right? I just said murder.
Merger. No, I've done a merger.
Okay.
So when Mobilink and Warid came together and formed Jazz, I was there.
That's great experience.
When I was in the UAE last year, the company I was working with, Pure Health, acquired 9 public sector companies. So I was part of that integration. 3 months ago, a company that belonged to friends of mine who had been working in the media and digital environment. They were a digital agency, and now they're digital and technology experiences company. They've just gone for their first IPO in the tech sector in the last year and a half in the country, and I was fortunate enough that they invited me to help them with it. So I think they were subscribed, so I think we did a pretty good job.
Proof of the pudding is in the eating.
But let's see. The public portion is tomorrow, so let's see how it goes.
That's awesome. So how do we manage? Look, so what you're saying is that you're sort of fueling your passion by doing consulting work, and sort of that's how you balance.
Yes, I am, and also I'm working towards scaling up LoKal Bites so that I'm able to then use it as my primary means of earning it. I have a son to take care of. I have a family to take care of. And I have to do that regardless. As you said, the bills come at the end of the month. I have to do it. But I sleep with a smile on my face. I don't struggle to convince people that this needs to be done. I take the decisions that need to be taken. And I'm creating something that's ours, as opposed to creating something that is not mine. And telling the story of something that's not mine. And that feeling of pride, it's almost like having another baby, because heart, blood, sweat, tears, emotions go into it. And a friend of mine advised me that you shouldn't be so emotionally involved with LoKal Bites because it's in the end it is
a startup.
It is a business. But I'm a believer in passion. I can't not be. I'm passionate about food and passionate about converting people and having them buy the food that I make. I love seeing the aha moment once they've taken, just like when I gave it to you and you took a bite. You say, really? Is this really gluten-free?
Yeah, it was really good. But मुझे बताएं एक और चीज़ बताएं. Is it selfish as a professional? Is it selfish to dream about being your own boss? Because आपको अक्सर कहा जाएगा भाई कि आप नौकरी कर रहे हैं यार, आप नौकरी करते रहें, लेकिन आपके you have bills to pay, you have kids to take care of, put them to school, बहुत सारे बिजली के बिल्स आज. ये क्या आप सोच रहे हैं यार, ये आप अपना काम करने के, don't be selfish, think about other people, think about. तो ये, how do you make that decision and still be guilt free? क्योंकि at the end of the day it is a risk, और आप अपने अलावा दूसरे लोगों को भी risk,
you're driven by something else besides
Because you're getting all the joy, but there
you're driven by a bigger purpose. I can't explain it in any other way. You have something that motivates you and tells you that you have to do this. I realized that in the last year, it was reaching that point with me that I want my heart kept going back to it. It was there. It was something that I had co-founded, but I wasn't actively engaged in it. But my engagement over the last year became more and more. When somebody spoke about changing this logo, my reaction was so emotional and so clear. Like I managed to convince them why it shouldn't be. And then they said to me, well, why aren't you doing this full time? And it's like, I don't know.
Oh, were you this passionate about, say, when you were working for the pharma sector or telecom, or even when you were a journalist? Were you always this passionate about whatever you're doing?
Yes. I'm an athlete. I used to swim professionally, and I'm even now part of the Karachi Women's Swimming Association. So my training as an athlete makes me very... have to love what you do in order to put your heart and soul into it. You really love what you do. It's the little bit extra that you're able to do when you're dying and you're tired and you're exhausted, but it's that little extra that keeps you away. When it stops being a passion and it just becomes a job, you should walk away from it. Honestly speaking, because then you're not giving it. And I think, you have one life to lead. If you're not able to explore and live your passion, and try and make an honest living out of it. And if Allah Ta'ala has given me that opportunity, I'm blessed. I'm so blessed that I found, and there are struggles every day. Every single day, my mother tells me, hi, why would you lead that life? And I keep telling her, I said, because I sleep better at night. And I wake up in the morning even more excited for the next.
So is ये जो startup शुरू करना, is it really that tough? लोग कहते हैं वो startups founders तो just रात को सोते हैं and then उनको आराम आता है. Like, is it really that bad?
It depends on how much of a planner you are, I think. Right? If you have, so the founder of this company is one of the most, he's brilliant because he's strategic and operational, right? I'm product, but he's made me operational and finance. Because he said to me that if you don't know how much the product to cost you're making, the product you're making costs, you're not going to be able to sell it right? So we literally went down to, sitting with him when we started around the dining table and saying, 1 चुटकी नमक जो हम इसमें डाल रहे हैं या 1 चुटकी चीनी जो डाल रहे हैं, how much is that? And it was something ridiculous like 65 pesos, but it had to be the cost of the product, right? And that became like almost a high for me. I was like, let's break it down. We chop, let's break it down. Let's find it fun. Not just creating it, but actually pricing it became like a obsession of mine.
So you go to a restaurant, अच्छा ये 25 रुपए का लग रहा है मुझे ऐसे इसमें 3 अंडे पड़े हैं.
Well, when I have a souffle somewhere and it was priced at 3,500 rupees and it's mostly air. I was kind of like, that's a nice margin, because I know exactly how much an egg is worth,
Yes. So where is life taking you now?
It's made me the co-founder of LoKal Bites. I'm living my passion. I think I'm a much better mother because I think I'm able to teach my son resilience and how to, overcome challenges.
Do you involve him in LoKal?
He writes
sites tasting.
Absolutely. When we get our order from Food Panda, he's the one who grabs the receipt and puts it into the Excel sheet.
What excellent training.
No, he wanted to do it himself. And he wanted pocket money for it. He negotiated that he's going to help us with the Excel sheets. And I'm so proud of him and love the fact that he wants to do that. And he sits with me and he's like, when he comes rush from school every day, because our Food Panda, we open on Food Panda at 7 in the morning.
Achha.
And as a home chef, and he always comes back home from school saying, how many orders did we get?
Yes, he's involved.
He told me, he says, Mom, on my birthday, instead of giving people a goodie bag, we'll give them a LoKal Bite cookie. you know. So
Planning.
I'm very, very blessed that.
So part of the perks of starting your own business is you get the chance to work with your son
Yes,
and involve him, and in a way sort of provide him the training.
well, it's going to be his one day.
Mm.
I hope it is. I hope I know that he's interested in cooking. And he has been for a very long time. And I remember when he was a baby, I used to, one of the things I learned about children's milestones was that you should introduce them to the senses very, very early on. So when I'd be cooking in the kitchen, agar main कोई masala इस्तेमाल करेगी, I'd make him sniff it. And then I'd make him taste also. So he would, and mashallah say he's never been a fussy eater. And he actually enjoys new food, and that doesn't say yuck. He's bless his heart, he'd try everything. And yeah.
Off there, how do you do that? How do you make your kids eat new things?
Again, curiosity. I just told him just try one thing. You can spit it out, but don't
But try it once.
or twice.
It's also true for
Even with stinky cheese, like literally smelly, stinky French cheese. I put it on a little toast and give it to him. He loves it. Now,
yeah.
initially he'd be like giving me a smelly sock, mom. We did, and you
A yummy smoke.
involve that in cooking it. That if they're really fussy eaters, then say, well, can you help me make this? And because they've made it themselves, they want to try it.
And this also goes for this might be true for entrepreneurship also. You have to try it.
You have to try it. How else would you know if you're not good at it, right? We may say, but I don't see that as an option. I mean, yes, we'll have to plan it that way. And
You took would you have like fear of failure ever?
no, I put it down to experience. I failed so much in my life that, now I'm like, I wouldn't be standing here today if it wasn't for failure. Then grasp it, make it a good friend. What did I learn from this situation? How have I grown? And comes from my mother. I'm very self-actualized. I really sit and look at things in my life in a very honest, and have very honest conversations with myself. For years and years and years, I think I was a people pleaser. But something snapped a couple of years ago. Now I'm like, enough. The rest of my life, I've done it. I've been in all the roles that I thought I was doing according to what people wanted me to do. Now I do it for me. Now I approach life the way I want to, the way I have conversations the way I want to. If I think, I find it so sad. So many people are in therapy. So many people go into therapy today because the way I see it, your school system and everything you learn as a child is people lie to people, be kind to people, be caring, be considerate. And when you go into the corporate world, it's like, be secretive. Don't share your information with people. People will take advantage. See how you can use this situation to your advantage. You become manipulative. And then when you hit your 40s and 50s, you try to go back to being the person that you were. And you spend years with a therapist on a couch trying to be that person that you were once. You become a satellite in your life. And that's so sad because father,
So you should stay true to yourself.
I honestly think you should. Can't be anyone else. By the end of the day, at 80, you're going to be sitting on a bench thinking, what happened to me? Where in my life? What did I do that I wanted to? And I've seen so many people who retire and they're like lost because they've given so much of themselves to companies. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing ever, but
letting go of your own identity, getting lost in that.
Exactly. So I always think that you should always have passions that you follow because that's what keeps you going. I mean, mashallah, say my father is 88 and he's still a practicing lawyer.
Mashallah, here's like wishing them a long life, healthy life. Anjum, thank you so much for being here. It was such a pleasure talking to you.
So glad, and it was such an enjoyable. I didn't realize that time had finished.
It was, and I learned so much. Thank you so much.
Sometimes when you have conversations with people, you learn a lot of things about yourself.
That's true. That's so true.
Having been talk show host. I'm the one who's asked the questions. This is one of the few times that somebody's asked me my opinions. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, and thank you for watching Kaam Kahani. Until next time, see you with another Kaam Kahani.